A very good morning to all. Today we are going to discuss about other two types of changes. In the last few classes, we were discussing about the different types of changes. So do you all remember the different types of changes? So which are the different types of changes? Desirable changes, the changes that are useful to us. Then we discussed about undesirable changes, the changes which are not useful to us. Then reversible changes, the changes which can be reversed, which can be undone, that is reversible changes. Then we learnt about irreversible changes, the changes which cannot be reversed, changes which cannot be undone. So such changes we call it as irreversible changes. And today we are going to discuss the last two, that is physical changes and chemical changes. So let's start with physical changes. So what are physical changes? Any change that affects only the physical properties of a matter, that is called a physical change. So what is a physical change? Any change that affects only the physical properties of a matter, that is called a physical change. So every substance has certain properties, right? Every substance has certain physical properties. The shape, temperature, state of matter, these are the physical properties of matter. State of matter, which means a substance can either be a solid, liquid or gas. So every substance has certain physical properties. And any change that affects the physical properties, any change that affects only the physical properties of a matter, we call it as a physical change. So physical change is mostly reversible, which means it can be reversed to its original form. And it is a temporary change. So that is about a physical change, a change that affects only the physical properties of a matter. So now let's see some examples for physical changes. The first is melting of ice. So is melting of ice a physical change? Yes, it is a physical change. So on heating, ice changes into water, which means its state of matter is changing. From solid, it changes to liquid. So can we change liquid back to solid? Yes. On cooling, water changes back to ice. So here, the physical property is only changing. That is, its state of matter changes and even there is a small change in the temperature. So its physical property is only changing. So melting of ice is a physical change. See the next one, evaporation of water. So when water evaporates, it changes into gas. It changes into gaseous state of matter. Liquid changes to gaseous state of matter. On cooling, what happens? It again changes to liquid state. So its state of matter is only changing. So it is a physical change. Only its physical property is changing. So evaporation of water is an example for a physical change. Moving to the next one. Here you can see a toy. This toy is made of wood. So this is a wooden toy. So does this wooden toy have all the properties of wood? Yes. So this wooden toy has all the properties of wood. Only its physical property has changed. So you all know the properties of wood. So for example, wood floats in water. So if you place this wooden toy in water, what happens? Does it float or sink? It floats because that is the property of wood. So this wooden toy, when it is placed in water, it floats, which means it has the same property of wood. Only its physical property has changed. So making a wooden toy from wood, it is a physical change. Its physical property has only changed. Moving to the next one. What you can see there? You can see a paper boat. So how do you make a paper boat? By folding the paper. So making a paper boat, by folding paper, is it a physical change? Yes, it is a physical change. So only its physical property is changing, which means only the shape of the paper is changed. All other properties remains the same. So when you burn this paper board, what happens? So this paper board will burn and it absorb water just like paper, which means it has the same properties of paper. Only its physical property has changed. So these are few examples for physical change. So what is a physical change? Any change that affects only the physical properties of matter. We call it as a physical change. And in physical change, a new substance is not formed. And it is mostly reversible, which means it can be reversed to its original form. And it is a temporary change. So that is about physical changes. Moving to the next one, that is chemical changes. So what is a chemical change? In a chemical change, the chemical properties of a substance change and a new substance is formed. So in a chemical change, the chemical properties of a substance change and a new substance is formed. In physical change, no new substance is formed. But in a chemical change, new substance is formed. And chemical change is a permanent change. And it is mostly irreversible, which means we cannot reverse it to its original form. That is, it is irreversible. The change is permanent. So that is called a chemical change. So let's see some examples for chemical change. The first one, you can see the picture, that is, you can see a fresh green leaf and then you can see a dry leaf. So my question is, can you change this dry leaf back to fresh green leaf? No, you cannot, because the leaves have undergone a chemical change that cannot be reversed. We cannot reverse it back to the original form. And this is a chemical change. What about the next one? A raw banana getting ripened. So can you change this ripened banana back to a raw banana? No, because it has undergone a chemical change that cannot be changed. So it is a chemical change. So it is irreversible. You cannot change it to the original form. It is permanent. The change is permanent. Moving to the next one, that is formation of curd. Milk changing into curd. So can we change the curd back to milk? No, we cannot change it because it has undergone a chemical change. Its chemical property has changed. The change is permanent. We cannot reverse it. It is irreversible. Moving to the next one, paper burning. So when paper burns, it changes to ash. Can we change this ash back to paper? No. The change is permanent. A new substance is formed, that is ash. We cannot change ash back to paper. The change is permanent. It is irreversible. So that is another example for a chemical change. So what is a chemical change? In a chemical change, the chemical properties of a substance changes and a new substance is formed. And it is a permanent change and it is mostly irreversible, which means it cannot be reversed to its original form. So that is about chemical changes. So now let's see the difference between physical and chemical change. See the first one, that is mostly reversible. So physical changes are mostly reversible, which means it can be reversed to its original form. That is, it is temporary. The change is temporary. The next is about chemical change. So chemical change, it is irreversible, which means the change is permanent. You cannot reverse it back to the original form. The next is no new substance is formed. In a physical change, no new substance is formed. But what about chemical change? New substances are formed. In chemical change, the chemical properties will change and new substances are formed. The next one, the substance that undergoes a change retain its property. So in a physical change, only its physical property changes, all other properties remains the same. What about in chemical change? New substances that are formed have different properties. So in chemical change, we know that new substances are formed and the new substances that are formed will have different properties. Let's take an example, milk changing to curd. So it is a chemical change. The new substance formed is curd. So curd does not have the properties of milk. So in a chemical change, the new substance will have different properties. So they do not have the properties of original substance. So that is what's given here. New substances that are formed have different properties. So in chemical change, new substances that have formed will have different properties. So they do not have the properties of original substance. So that is the difference between physical and chemical change. So in this class, we discussed about physical change and chemical change. In physical change, it affects only the physical properties. And what about in chemical change? In chemical change, a new substance is formed. The chemical properties of a substance changes. So that is about the topic physical changes and chemical changes. I hope the class was clear to you. We'll meet in the next class and discuss a new topic. Till then, thank you.